And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. I am your host, Wes Tankersley. We have another Treasure Valley edition here with Matt Stanley. He is the owner of Oasis Interactive LLC, but also starting something off of that. You want to talk a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, I've actually been in the marketing industry for 30 years. I started really building websites in 1995, so I'm going to date myself a little bit. And back then, social media wasn't a thing like it is now. A lot of the technology hadn't even been invented yet. So if you wanted to build a website, first of all, there wasn't any published books on HTML. You had to learn by doing. So you had to look at a website, check out the source code, figure out, how does this work, and try stuff and refresh the browser. Oh, that's what that is. So, I taught myself how to build websites by hand. And over time, even though that wasn't anything I had in mind as any sort of career path, it became clear to me this is something that I don't just want to do, I'm called to do it. And it's just a lot of fun. So right off the bat, of course, building websites, doing search engine optimization so that you could come up on Google rankings and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But eventually it was one of those things where I had different careers and I did different jobs, but I realized I'm just not content, doing other stuff. I want to do this full time. So got different jobs where that was the full-time gig and, managing all the ad spend for, I'm going to try not to geek out too much.
No, you're fine.
Pay-per-click, ad spend for 5-figure budgets for a software company that had, IBM, and Fortune 500 clients, organic and the pay-per-click ads and all that kind of stuff. Again, social media was in its infancy at that time, and had a window of time there where I was laid off. That was pretty scary, being on unemployment for quite a while. Then got a job at the what's now Joint School District Number 2, Ada West, I guess.
West Ada, okay.
West Ada School District at the district office, doing the webmaster thing, and built like 42 websites in Joomla, which is also a little bit dated now, but it's a content management system.
I think that's what my website is actually.
Okay.
That's the one it runs on.
Okay, there you go. It still works.
Yep.
It still gets the job done. But it was one of those things where it was kind of progression, right? So when I saw the internet for the first time and I realized what this thing could be or what it made possible, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And so had jobs, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of tell my origin story, if you will, as an entrepreneur. So 2008, anybody that is alive that lived through that period knew that was not fun. We had kind of a cascade. It started with really the subprime mortgage crisis that started about 2007 and had a ripple effect, not only for about the next 5-6 years in a big way. Here domestically in the U.S., it affected the world economy because as the United States America economy goes, so does everything else. And I found myself, so this was 2008. I'll never forget as long as I live. It's burned into my brain cells forever. Extinction level event, makes an impression. And my boss was like, hey, you got a minute? I don't know how I knew this. I just knew. I was about to be, notified that in 20 days I'd be unemployed. Because if you work for the school district, unlike a traditional job, it's a contract.
Yeah.
It's an annual contract. It renews or it doesn't. And generally speaking, at the time I thought, pretty safe job. Actually, ironically, took this job as a massive pay cut from the previous job, expressly for the purpose that they had really good benefits.
Right.
Pay was not great, but job security, which was hilarious because I still lost my job. But in the office, my boss was like, I'm sorry, I don't agree with this. I think this is the wrong decision, but we're just trying to, stay alive as an organization with what's going on in the economy. And
that's the things that they cut, right? They're going to cut the stuff that's kind of like the fluff. Like hey, this is going to go. We're going to get rid of band. We're going to get rid of PE. We're going to get rid of music, and we're going to get rid of all the tech stuff because we don't need this, but they do need math, English, history, and all that other
stuff. Reading,
right?
writing, arithmetic. Yeah. So from the perspective, with all due respect, I don't mean to cast stones here, but the decision makers, aren't the people in the trenches every day running the thing. And so they're like, we don't need a full-time person to do this. We can consolidate, we can whatever. And this particular job, to be fair, it had been ping pong back and forth in and out of house for years. They had a subcontractor that was outsourced, and then they brought it in, and then they put it back out, and then they brought it back in. And so it was kind of this long line of can we do this or should we do this in-house or not? And they, during my 3.5-year tenure, they thought, well, this is best in-house. And they decided not to. Well, what for me at the moment, to be frank, seemed like my life is over. It came apart.
Oh, yeah.
I was doing the ugly cry blowing snot bubble 5-year-old girl thing in my boss's office because my wife and I had actively started trying to get pregnant with our first child. She had taken a pay cut to do the telecommute thing because back then Boise didn't do that. COVID changed that. But so we were in this place financially where it was pretty scary. And my boss was like, you're going to be out of a job, and I had a crisis moment, and I'm going to talk about God if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
I came apart, and I guess it wasn't so much me having a conversation with him, but the Lord had a conversation with me, and it was kind of a teachable moment. And he goes, listen, your life is not over.
Right.
And your perspective is jacked up because if you think that all of your, your identity and your confidence and your provision comes from the job, you got it backwards. The job, and I kind of got this metaphor in my head. It was kind of like a word picture or a movie in my head. He's like, think of the job like a faucet. The water is the provision, but the faucet's the dispensing mechanism.
Right.
I'm the provision, and you're my kid, because I'm a Christian, I love Jesus. And so the water comes wherever it comes from, but if you think that where it comes from is the thing, you're sadly mistaken.
Right. And
so I was like, okay. And he says, you don't fit. This is kind of how he put it to me. He goes, you don't fit. You've never fit. You never will fit in a job, right? Which I now consider a 4-letter word. You're made. I'm a straight shooter, man.
Yeah, it's funny though. I never really thought of it that way. It's like, yep. It's a bad.
He basically was like that itch, and the way I've kind of described this to people is I felt like there was an itch I couldn't scratch. As a man,
right?
And you're a one too. We are defined by our career. We find our very identity in what we do. The first thing when you meet a dude for the first time, what's the first question we always ask each other? What do you do?
Yeah.
Right. It's just how we think. So I was trying to process all this, and I felt like there was this, and I felt like there is this itch I couldn't scratch. And each job that I had prior to this that got closer and closer through the whole, like basically full-time marketer, I guess is the best way to put it. I felt like I'm coming closer and closer to what I'm made for. And this was the first time I'd have to do the math for this, but it's been 30 years as of this year. But this was 2008. So whatever that is math wise, I felt like it's firing on all cylinders as far as the work, right? What I was doing every day in and day out. And I was like in the zone. This is like living my best life, but it wasn't it.
Right.
And when he said that, I was like, he's right. I want to do this work, but I don't want to just be in prison, basically, constrained by the employer,
it's
which
funny
is tell
because,
you, go ahead.
That's exactly what I'm hearing right now. I'm sitting there thinking of it in my own mind. It's like, I started this company that I have now, 6 months ago. And the reason I started it was because I was tired of answering to someone else. Like the reality is that no matter what I want or no matter what I think is the right thing to do, it'll never be my opinion that matters because it's not my business. He's going to do what's best for him.
Yeah.
And he's not going to do what's best for me. What I think is best for me, he's going to do what he thinks is best for his whole company.
Exactly.
And so now I get to make the choice of what's best for me. Now that hurts a little bit more because when things aren't going the way that they're supposed to, you're responsible for it. Yeah. But you're also responsible for it.
Exactly. Well, and it's like you're the captain with the hand on the rudder. Like you have a vision. You're a very visional guy. I can see that. Vision oriented, I mean. But when you know what you're supposed to do, it's really simple because it's like we're doing it.
Yeah.
And when you know it's what you're called to, there's a big difference between vocation and calling. I think a lot of people get this upside down or get it backwards. Is they think that the work is the what, but I don't see it that way. The work is the how, but the what is like, what am I here for?
Yeah.
Why did God create me, and what are my gifts? What do I feel most alive doing? And then how can I best leverage that skill set to bless the most people, right? So in this crisis moment, it really was a crisis moment. I honestly felt kind of convicted. Like I've been a Christian since I was 5 years old at this point, and yet I think my life's coming apart because I lost my job for the second time in a row. The previous one was a corporate restructuring.
It's almost like the faith is not there.
Exactly. Yes, you're right. It's true.
Yeah.
Truth hurts sometimes.
Yep.
And so I lost the one job. I'm like, oh, crisis, but it's fine, whatever. And then I got this one. I'm like, yay, job security.
Yeah.
Not. And
what's weird about that is like you talked about going to school and like, oh man, this is a secure place. There's a couple places that are secure, right? Like prisons, hospitals, and schools are typically the safest place to be.
Right.
And like when I went to college, the reason I went to college was because my parents told me that I needed to be secure.
Yeah.
And in order to be secure, you have to have a degree.
Yep.
Well, I always fought that. I flunked out of college the first time.
Okay.
And then I changed tires for 11 years.
Oh, wow.
Telling them, hey, no, I worked at Les Schwab, which was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. But then dumbly, I went back to college.
Oh, okay.
So I have 2 degrees.
Oh, wow.
And I taught for 4 years. I was a teacher for 4 years, which is like a service thing to me. Like that's what I actually did. And it was very, well, it wasn't. Like I was kind of in that same route before too. Cause like I got hired in Marsing. I taught there for 2 years.
Okay.
And then was trying to be a high school PE teacher, which is really hard to do.
Okay.
Because they don't turn over that fast and no one wants, whatever. So
sure.
I transferred to Middleton High School and became a senior project teacher for a year.
Oh, wow.
Because there was a guy that was going to retire.
Uh-huh.
Well, the guy decided not to retire.
Oh, no.
And so then the next year they decided, well, we're going to add a teacher. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to get it. So they're going to add me because I'm here already. Well, it's not the way it works. The guy at the middle school wanted to come up to the high school. So they wouldn't even interview me for the middle school position.
Oh, man.
And they said, you're just not going to have a job next year. We're going to try and figure out what to do. I'll write you a letter of recommendation. I'll help you, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So they got the guy from the middle school up there. And then they took another teacher that was at the high school, and she decided that she was going to go into like this admin position, that she wasn't going to be a PE teacher.
Okay.
And then I got a PE job.
Oh, man.
And I'm
Shell
like,
game.
I'm there. I got it. So I had to teach out a class 1 year, and then I taught the class that I wanted to, and I was like so excited that I was going to do it. And I was just like, it just wasn't what I thought it was. I got the master's degree, and I was like, just like you said, I was going to work every day just to do the same thing. Parents are crazy with kids these days. There's a lot of things that are going on, and it's just like, same thing. It's like that calling you have that you feel that you have to teach is what I have, like, but I found a different way to do it because I feel like this conversation here that you and I have, or that anyone else I have with, is teaching a bunch of people about what we're doing, and they're able to get educated again. So it's
absolutely,
you find another way to do something that makes you, use your gifts for what you really feel that makes you happy doing it. So.
Yeah. Life is really surprising because you have a plan. You've probably heard the joke. How do you want to, if you want to make God laugh, make a plan.
Yeah.
Because we make a plan, but that's great. And there's nothing wrong with it. But I find that your calling is something that finds you. Mm-hmm. That's been my experience 30 years into this thing, right? It started 30 years ago, but I didn't see it until, kind of in the rearview mirror, what's been happening. And I did the math because I was just curious, well, how long has it been? And this year is 30 years, really. And I went, I mean, it's just messy. I'm old enough to have grown up when you used to have the paper every day.
Right.
And there was the comics section. It had the family circus, and there was the little kid that like had the, dotted line going over. That's what I feel my journey's been. But at the same time, I can see the trajectory of it. And the beauty of it is, in that moment when I was tripping, I mean, the Lord just told me, no, in certain terms, you're never going to be satisfied if you keep doing this thing of like, I've got to get a job. I got to get a job. It's like, well, no, you've got to do what you're made for. And you know what that is, Matt. You know that it's marketing. You know that it's sales. You know that it's crafting online experiences that take people's breath away so that they lean in and they fill out that contact us form, or they engage with that chat bot on AI widget or whatever, or they do this or do that. And since then, the technology has just gone way into sci-fi mode.
I don't think a lot of people really understand what you said in the beginning about the HTML coding, because that's not really something that anyone really knows about. The cool thing that I was thinking about as you were saying it was, when you were doing this, I was pretty close to graduating high school. So I was in just when like computers became a big thing, just when the internet became something, right? Like and everything was just like lines of words and things like that.
Oh yeah, no pictures, no graphics, not even animated GIFs back then. That hadn't happened yet.
So you're creating a website when people are just learning what websites are about, right?
Yeah, that's when I started.
And now you're in this whole different place. So like that gap of space that you've had to learn all these different skills in order, because that was way different than what you're doing now, right?
True, very different. And I guess that kind of leads to the next thing I want to talk about, if it's okay to jump in there.
Go for it.
It's funny too, because you look back, and I laugh at myself because I have the benefit of years of wisdom and experience looking back. And if I could go back in time, there's things I do a lot different. Mm-hmm. One of those is seeing the bigger picture. So when I started, I'm a methodical person. I'm a very visionary, creative, empathic, raw person that's very much a visionary. Yeah. But I also have a weird sort of brain that's able to get tactical and break things down into bite-sized pieces and literally write a blueprint. So I kind of can live in both spaces. But I have all right, I got a plan. I'm gonna file the Secretary of State paperwork to start an LLC. Right. And then I'm gonna keep my job, and do the side hustle thing, building this marketing agency, which is hysterical, like that would have ever worked, and build it up to where I'm making this amount of money, then I'll quit and then I'll do this full time. That was kind of the plan. And then 2000 happened and turned the world upside down. And I lost the job, and it was like, interesting. I already have the domain name. I have the brand. I have the LLC. I've started to build up a little bit of a book of business, but the business was called Oasis Interactive. And since I market for a living and do brand development for a living, at the time I thought it was a great idea because I had this metaphor, which was basically people that are in business realize whether I like it or not, whether I'm a techie or not, I have to embrace the internet because it's changed the world forever.
Yeah.
So whether I understand it, whether I like it, whether it's my jam or not, doesn't matter. Got to have a website. These days, got to have the socials, better have some AI, something going on, right? Yeah. All these things, right? But they hate it. I mean, I talked to hundreds of people. They hated it. They always hate it. Very few of them thought it was fun or exciting. They were kind of like, bad attitude. It's something I got to do, right?
Which is so weird about it because like the hate for it, like I see it all the time. Like I'm 44. My little brother's 42, and it's so weird listening to him because he won't do anything on a computer. He'll only do it on his phone. He wants nothing to do with technology. He thinks people are tracking him. They think, like that's the thought. Like there's all these things going on, and like they will not embrace it. And the fact of the matter is if you don't, you're going to get lost here shortly.
Oh yeah, you're going to be a dinosaur that's already extinct but just doesn't know it hasn't died yet.
Right, exactly.
That's a fact.
You have to figure it out because if you don't, you're not going to be able to move forward in the world.
Yeah.
It's not going to go backwards.
Right. No, absolutely. There's no putting that genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
So I had this idea for this logo and brand of Oasis Interactive, which was basically, we're basically this oasis in the desert of technology. And at the time I thought that was great. I realize now it's awful because it takes 5 minutes to explain it. It's not a good brand.
Right.
But the ship had sailed. It is what it is. And so it was all about websites and websites and websites and building websites and doing search engine optimization and brand development. So logos and, corporate identity packages and all that kind of stuff. And so really kind of marketing based on things, right? Deliverables. And that was fine. And it paid the bills, but it wasn't really the right thing.
Yeah.
And so, fast forward a few years, it's one of those things where I started out doing this, and people kept asking because I was just websites, right? That's all I was doing. And they said, "Well, can you do logos?" And I said, "Well, we don't really do that." And well, can you do this? Well, we don't really do that. And so people wanted marketing. They wanted a marketing agency.
Right.
They just didn't use that kind of language back then. And so I would say no to work, and I'd lose the account. I'd lose the contract or never get awarded the business.
So you wouldn't even get the website.
Right, because they wanted one-stop shopping.
Yeah.
And so my wife actually said, why don't we do websites? I mean, why don't we do, the brand stuff? And I said, well, because I can't do the whole process from inception to finished product, digital file to hand over to, the graphics team. She said, that's stupid. There's people you can hire. There's right. experts you can delegate that to and get subcontractors or whatever. And so we should be doing both and expand our services. I said, she's right. She's absolutely right. So we expanded and we started doing that. We started doing vehicle wraps and, all sorts of stuff and built up a great team. But still it was more of I want this. And in their defense, a lot of businesses, I think this is something I still run into today, 30 years into it. People don't realize that the problem that they think they have is not the problem they actually have. It's the symptom. So they're thinking, well, I just need a better website, or I need to get on Facebook, or I need to get some AI chat thing on the website. And so it really, the metaphor that I use, it's like playing whack-a-mole blindfolded, and hoping that you'll hit it. And it's like, well, hold on. What game are you playing? Because if you keep reacting to problems, but you never take a beat, get above the problem and look at it from a high perspective overview, you're going to struggle and you're never going to get the ROI you deserve or you should expect from your marketing investment because you don't have a plan.
Yeah.
So I realized after a while, probably about the 7 to 10 year mark of owning the business and very much, once I was into the whole full-time thing, because in 2008, that was it. That was when Oasis Interactive was, really my full-time gig. But a few years later, I realized, I still love doing websites, but I'm not really solving the core problem because I'm playing whack-a-mole, just like every other marketing agency out there that's not really a strategic business consultant. There's a world of difference between designing a website and accomplishing something like dramatically decreasing your cost per acquisition for a client while increasing revenue and improving retention, right? I kind of used a lot of terms there, but I realized okay, I'm not really solving the problem. I'm just putting a Band-Aid on the symptom. And so what emerged over time, this is actually pretty exciting, is I realized I'm in the wrong business. I'm not in the wrong business, but I'm going about this the wrong way, and I'm not really solving the problem. And so I really do believe that God's involved in everybody's life, whether they realize it or not. He's certainly involved in mine. And I felt like he started giving me insight and say, you're not solving the root problem. And so I started a dialogue on that. I said, well, what's the root problem? He says, the root problem is they don't understand that they're not being strategic, and they're just kind of casting, their seeds, so to speak, into the windstorm and wondering why they don't have we're in Idaho, so we're going to go there. They're frustrated. They don't have a whole field full of corn, but they never planted the seed in the ground in the right location with the right process. And it's like, they're never going to have a harvest if they keep doing that.
Yeah. And this is a great conversation for, everyone who's listening is watching this, because that is starting a new business in doing that. Like, I think the marketing is probably the hardest part. I would say it is the hardest part, because you don't know, like, for instance, like with me, like I watched kind of what I did at the other company, but they're dropping off flyers at houses that just closed. They're putting out magazines. Yeah. They've got a website that doesn't look that great. They're not doing anything to do with the new technology stuff. Like AI is going to be a killer thing. And we got lucky because we found this. I joined this network of window covering people, and they have like all these different things. And there's a marketing team that all they do is market to window covering people. So it's like, I'm sitting there watching this and I'm going, wow, this is happening today. They did this, they did that. Like before you got here, I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, that's an ad. I haven't even seen this, and this is great. It's like, man, I couldn't come up with this. Like I'm doing all the content posting on social media. Like I'm taking pictures of stuff, and I'm doing talking head videos and things like that. And I've got some stuff, but like you can go out, like the first month I went out and I dropped flyers off and I got nothing.
Crickets, right?
Yeah.
No
and I'm
ROI.
like, this is not working.
Right.
And so like I'm spending all this time and gas and everything trying to figure out what to do, and nothing's happening. What am I doing wrong? Like, and that's it. You just start throwing things out. Just like you said, it's like, that's a great way to look at it. It's like, here's some corn there. Here's some, you're just in this big old giant field, and you're not in this circumference that you need to be in. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And again, I've made this joke, but I do feel this way. I and this is kind of unreasonable, but I really believe that it's irresponsible to have the Secretary of State, take people's $100 checks to form a legal entity that you can get a tax ID number and all that, and not require some sort of education. In college, they teach reading and writing, arithmetic, and even business college, they teach principles and ideas and all this kind of stuff. But to be frank, now 18 years into full-time business ownership, it's useless. There's zero practical application in the everyday world. Yeah. And marketing is one of those things that's really equal part arts and science, right? You need to understand the mechanics of the technical stuff, which most people really struggle with. Okay. But you also need to understand sales and building relationships. And so kind of transitioning into where I was going with that thought is, I was like, man, I know I'm not making the difference I could. And so what I realized, well, part of the problem is my own brand positioning. Oasis Interactive, what is that? If the name doesn't tell you what you do without the unique selling proposition or elevator pitch, you got a problem. You got to look at the name, right? Yeah. If the name does, great. But if you can take the name and then in 1 10-second blurb, say something that gets people emotionally provoked to respond, now you've got $1 million company, right?
And it's amazing. I don't know if anyone heard that, but you said 10 seconds.
10 seconds, not 5 minutes.
That's the thing. That's right? That's the attention span nowadays.
People don't have they don't have the time span for a 5-minute, intro. So I was like, okay, we got to think about this. And so it's the craziest thing. All of a sudden I was kind of, I don't just find problems and ruminate on them forever. I'm like, we have a problem that needs to be solved.
Right.
We don't want to stay stuck. Let's solve the problem. And so I was thinking on it, and I kid you not, it popped in my head just like this clear as a bell thought. GetReviewsAndLeads.com. I know it came from God. I know it did. GetReviewsAndLeads.com. And I went, okay, that is the most incredible domain name I've ever heard of for a marketing agency. There is no way it's not already bought by somebody. And I had this thought, which I believe it was God. Well, go check. I did. Guess what? It was not. It was available. Not for the extortion, like domain squatters, right? They'll buy a domain, they'll sit on it for 10 years, sell it for $5,000.
Right.
Like, no, it was my cost. I was like, oh, I'm buying this. So I bought it, and then I bought the .com, the .co, the .biz, the .net, like all the different, things. And I started to build on that. And so now our focus is like, listen, of course, websites matter. They're always going to matter.
Right.
But if you cannot articulate persuasively, compellingly, in a way that really gets people emotionally excited what you're about, you're not going to be as successful as you could.
Yeah.
And so getreviewsandleads.com was born. I got an awesome logo and brand that I developed. And then I started thinking about, okay, well, that's a great name. Get Reviews and Leads is the name, the unique value proposition, the mission statement, you can extrapolate the services. What do you do? I mean, yes, it's a digital marketing agency, but we're about helping people get reviews, because that's hugely important now with Google algorithm, and leads. Because if you have good lead flow, you have a decent sales message and offer, you're going to be successful.
Right.
So then I took it the next step farther. I was like, okay, I've got to develop something that is my own unique secret sauce, because KFC,
they got their own original
Chick-fil-A, I'm going to name names, and you're going to automatically start having sensory memories in your taste buds of joy and happiness, right?
Yep.
Blizzard. I don't even see, that's the product name, not that it's Dairy Queen. Like,
Yeah.
these companies have got it figured out. And so I was like, all right, there's got to be something I come up with that's easy to remember and explain, that's my own proprietary, potentially trademarkable framework for marketing that works. And it works every time. None of this, let's spend $5,000 on Facebook ads this month, and let's try flyers and just this, again, the seed in the tornado nonsense. No. Let's develop a framework that is 2 + 2 = 4, rinse and repeat, and it always works every time, regardless of industry, ad spend, all of that.
Yeah.
And so I started to think about it, and I was like, okay, I've got it. It just popped in my head one day. I don't know how else to explain it. It was there. And I was like, yeah, that's right. So here's what it is. It's easy to remember because it's a word. It's 4 letters. And once I say it, you'll never be able to forget. So think of a rack, like a coat rack. Okay. Something you hang coats on, rack. The R stands for reach. The A stands for attract. The C stands for convert. And the K stands for keep. Now, if you put that together in a unique value proposition statement of, okay, Matt, tell me what you do. We help growth-minded entrepreneurs reach, attract, convert, and keep their dream customers on autopilot without overwhelm, so they can build the business they want. Yeah. Get your freedom back. Get your time back. Right. No more of this 80-hour-a-week grind, never see my wife and kids, lose my marriage because I'm always working. No. Have a framework that actually has worksheets and diagnostic evaluations and things like that, built on a foundation that I'll talk about in a second, that just works every time. And then when you spend money on strategic advertising around that, the conversion rate's awesome. Yeah. The client retention is next level. You have people that are brand ambassadors that are fanatical fans referring everyone they know to you because you've done such a great job taking care of them. They would never dream of leaving to your competitor.
Right.
So that's where this rack thing is powerful, because the guessing game of playing whack-a-mole blindfolded with one hand tied behind your back, it's over. Yeah. It's over. You follow this, you'll be more successful, you'll keep more of your customers, and you'll be doing stuff that keep your competitors awake at night, wondering if they're going to survive because you're just crushing the industry that you're in. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you have that. You just keep going back to it because it's just that same formula that you complete over and over again, and just keep doing the same thing.
Yeah. Reach, if I can just take a couple minutes here.
Yeah.
Reach is about your brand awareness, right? So your reach is your market footprint, or
you're basically defining who your customer is. Who are you trying to market to?
Right. Exactly. Right. And reach is your ability to be present enough that your industry, they know who you are. They've heard your name, right? So, okay, cool. We know who you are. Let's go with Shade Bros. We know who Shade Bros is. We keep seeing their stuff pop up, the Facebook pixel stalking me. So every time I turn around, I'm seeing their ads or whatever, right? Okay, cool. So they're aware of it, but they're not a customer yet. Yep. So that's the brand awareness. Okay, cool. Well, so we got reach down. Check. Next, attract. And the cool thing about this, Wes, is that each of the parts of the rack, which are very linear and sequential, each of them feeds the next one. So reach feeds the next part, which is attract. Okay, well, cool. We know you exist, but knowing you exist and being interested or intrigued to kind of enter into a potential relationship is that next step, not unlike dating. You don't propose marriage on a blind date the first time you meet.
To get them to come to you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we want to attract them into our orbit. Okay, cool. Well, that's going to be things like your advertising. That's going to be things like your social media posting, the strategy behind putting out the baited hooks in the water where the ponds of the fish are that you want your ideal customer to get them interested, right? And starting a conversation. Raise their hand saying, yeah, I want to learn more about that.
Yep.
So we've got the attract part. Cool. So now we're having lead flow, consistent lead flow, not feast or famine. Am I going to pay my bills this month? Can't sleep at night, have constant, heartburn over it. No. So we got good reach. We got good attraction. Cool. Well, that's great, but you got to close those people, right? A lead is a prospect that hasn't bought yet. It doesn't mean anything until they sign the contract or give you the credit card or whatever. We need them to close.
Yep.
So the convert is that magical part of the relationship where the dollar signs are rolling in and you're actually closing deals. It doesn't matter if you sell cars or subdivisions or widgets at Walmart. It doesn't matter. If you are selling a product or a service, you have to close.
Right.
And that also is an art form. So now we're converting. Okay, cool. Now here's the thing though. 99% of everyone I have ever talked to in 30 years of getting paid to do marketing for a living stops there because they think they're done.
Yeah.
They're not done. They're just getting started. Now that may sound like a weird statement that's like nonsense. No. Stopping at convert is like having a 5-gallon bucket full of, if you were able to take 24 karat gold and convert it into, liquid, I don't know what that would be, but let's just say, pure money.
Right.
And you basically drilled it full of holes this big. It's exactly what you've done.
Yeah.
If you think because you closed them, you're done, you're wrong. Because if you don't maintain that relationship intentionally, proactively, every single week, forever, it's not a question of if they'll churn, it's how long until they do.
Right.
Now, I speak from experience on this.
I can totally see, like, as you're talking about, I can totally see what it is. You have to cultivate that relationship. Because, like, in the industry that I'm in, like, most people who buy from me one time are going to buy from me again.
Mm-hmm.
They bought this house, and most people move every couple years, every 2 to 4 years. And if they're doing that, they're going to need you again. So if they forgot about you, how are you going to get their business again?
Exactly.
You have to figure out a way to get them to remember who you are and want to use you again.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people get really complacent.
Yep.
And overly confident. And again, I don't mean to sound overly hostile or critical or negative. It's just I've been in this business a long time, and I've seen the same mistakes that are tragic because they're so easily preventable happen over and over and over again. And I kind of use a lot of analogies and metaphors, especially when I'm teaching, but I find that helps people understand the concept and remember it. I have been married. I will celebrate 2 decades of marriage in next March, 20 years of marriage, 19 right now. If you want a healthy marriage, you got to continue to cultivate the soil of the relationship, right? Yeah. You can't let weeds grow in and, misunderstandings and hard feelings and no. The second you see the weed, you pull it up, you address it, you deal with the conflict, you have the uncomfortable conversation.
Right.
You address it, but you don't just gloss over it. You pull the root of the weed out and you make it whole. And I think that a lot of business owners make the mistake. Again, a lot of them just don't know any better because they're scrambling in the day-to-day to just keep the business going, right? To just pay the bills, meet the goals, pay their people, hopefully grow and scale, that they're so focused and having to, because they're never at the place of freedom they want, of working in the business. They literally have no time, no margin, no even mental capacity for working on the business. They're working in it 24/7. Even if they have a foreman or a manager or a director of operations, doesn't matter. They're still in it 24/7 in here, right? So they don't realize that there's a blind spot, and it's kryptonite that's killing Superman. I mean it. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, that's really the truth of it, right?
Fits well for me.
It does, yeah.
We just had this conversation before.
I love Superman. He's my favorite. I'm going to see the opening
you guys
movie
can't
tomorrow.
See it, but it's all over here.
There's Superman swag everywhere. When I walked in, I was like, oh, this is my person.
Yeah.
I love Superman. But, you can't take for granted those relationships. I don't care if they've been buying you from you off and on for 10 years, you cannot get in that comfort zone of complacency, because the second you do, someone will come along and poach him. Yep. And the irony is, it doesn't take hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to do this. It doesn't take tens of thousands. It takes intention, and it takes strategy, and it takes systems, usually powered by software, yep, to make sure that there's that drip, drip, drip. You're just constantly maintaining top of mind awareness, and not constantly trying to sell them. Delivering value, having a newsletter that's not just one more thing that falls in junk that they go, oh, I'm hearing from so-and-so. No, you're actually delivering legit value. You're adding something of interest to them that makes their life better, that makes them happy to see that inbox email come through and not want to unsubscribe.
Right.
And go, okay, you know what? Yeah, maybe what else do they have to offer that we haven't looked at yet? Mm-hmm. And there's always something you can sell them. There's always some cross-sell, upsell. There might be a strategic alliance with a partner that complements your business, right, that you go, well, I don't have anything else. We've maximized, the relationship at this point with what we can offer you, but we work with this guy and he's amazing, and you would probably love what he has to offer because it complements what we do. And so thinking outside the box too, there's a lot of ways to maintain that relationship that don't require constantly trying to sell.
Yeah.
Because you can sell with the value serving that person without trying to get money out of their pocket. And honestly, Wes, if that's your heart attitude, is to be a servant leader that loves your customer enough to be in it for them and not yourself, you'll never have to worry about cash flow again, because your heart attitude is properly motivating service.
Right.
They'll see that, and they'll be loyal to that, and they'll want to refer you business and stay with you year after year after year.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
That's 100% does. And that's the difference between what I'm doing now versus what I was doing before. Like, I'm still the same person. I'm still the same salesperson. I still do what I do.
Sure.
But the reality is that they came to me because they like me. Mm-hmm. I gave them what they needed. And what is it that you can give them back that makes them want to return? That's really it.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to define that. And I think once you define that, you'll have repeat people. Like I have customers and realtors and people that have come with me because of me.
Right.
Not because of where I was, but because of who I am and what I brought to the table. So they like me for who I am. They like what I gave. They saw value in what I'm doing. And that's what you have to do. Find that value and continue to give it.
Yeah.
And I think at the place that I used to work, it was like that value just like, as you're talking about, it's like they put all their eggs in one basket and that's where it's at. And the only thing that's keeping them afloat is those eggs are in that basket. And that's where it's at. Like you have to be willing to keep shifting. If you were still HTML coding in the beginning, where would you be today?
I'd be unemployed.
You'd be unemployed.
I'd be working probably somewhere else in a job I hated, doing something that, every day I go to work, I feel like a little part of my soul dies.
And that's what it is about for me. It's like,
yeah,
you can die in the trenches if you want, or you can make that shift and keep moving forward. It's funny. We were talking about Superman, and I'm just going to tell you this story because I was thinking about it today because I love Superman.
Oh, yeah.
Like, when I was a kid, it was the first movie I ever went to, I think, was Superman 2. I was born in 1980, wasn't alive when the first one came out, and it was all on VHS. So, yeah, we're all dated.
Yeah, we are.
I was watching Batman versus Superman, and I was watching Superman and Lois. Like, there's all these things come out, and they all have their inversion of Doomsday, okay?
Mm-hmm, sure.
Everyone hates Doomsday. He's the ultimate villain. He kills Superman. He is what he is. But what I noticed about Doomsday, and this literally just came to my head yesterday, like I just started thinking about it yesterday, is every time Doomsday gets killed, he comes back stronger.
Yep.
Because that killing has taught him how to become stronger, and his body evolves into something different that can help him conquer again, right?
That's right.
So, like, to me, as much as I love Superman, I want to be like Doomsday. I want to be the person who changes and keeps moving forward and keeps getting stronger and keeps beating it back down. Because if you can figure that out, if you can figure out that life is going to have a bunch of things that are thrown at you that are going to drop you to the ground, if you can get back up stronger, just like Doomsday does every single time, it's something that you'll never stop. If you can figure that out, you're going to be able to keep moving forward, keep evolving, keep becoming stronger.
Yeah, I totally agree. The expression "what doesn't kill you makes you stronger" is so true.
It is. And that's the thing. It's like I just pictured, as I was talking about that, I'm picturing him in Batman versus Superman. He blows up and he comes back and he's got more spikes and more stuff. He's like, I got to get him. I didn't get him this time. And then boom, I got him again.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's crazy. Like I said, I love Superman, but Doomsday is the guy who is evolving to become stronger, to become more, to become better, to be, and that's what I think we have to do in life. We have to find a way every time we get knocked down to get back up and get back up stronger.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of where people don't reach their fullest potential is they're just afraid to fail. Mm-hmm. And they see failure as a moral failing and as a personal deficit. I completely disagree. I don't know the exact that I could pull up accurately, but the number of times that Edison tried to invent the light bulb that failed before he had the success was not in the dozens, it was in the hundreds. It was 561 or something insane.
Yeah.
When I first heard that statistic, it resonated because I went, okay, he was a different species of human than most people alive. Most people after 450, 470 was said, screw this, I'm out.
Yeah,
I give up. But he's like, no, I know this is possible.
Right.
And I will not stop until I figure it out. And I think a really cool thing about the people that are most successful is not that they're smarter. Mm-hmm. It's not that they had some unique idea that's never been thought of. It's not that they invented something. It's that they just kept going and they wouldn't stop. And when I had this whole experience in 2008, and then I just really felt God calling me to do this, I was excited for the first time in my life because I went, I finally know the why. I finally know the why I'm here, and I finally know the what.
Yeah.
And I knew in my spirit, I knew in my gut, this is going to be successful. And I had this just decision. I don't know. I can't explain it other than just I made it. I made a decision.
Yeah.
It wasn't a feeling. Feelings followed later, but I made a decision. I will die before I stop. I will die. I will not quit.
Yeah.
You'll have to kill me, like decapitation style.
Yeah.
To get me to stop, because God said do this thing, and I love the work, but I want to be able to serve as many people as possible. And now that I'm not constrained by the 9 to 5, I can.
Yeah.
And so that's really the birthplace of what has now become really so much more than just websites. Yes, we do websites, of course, but we do all the rest of it. We do consulting. I mean, I love sitting down with someone and going, okay, we have to dial the services back to what the budget will support. If someone has 5 to 10 grand, 25 grand a month to work with, we got a lot more options and a lot more I can get into.
Right.
Than if it's just, the 2,500 a month, which is kind of the starting point for anything beyond the most basic, just low ticket stuff. But let's have a conversation. Let's run you through our rack diagnostic tool and assess objectively where you are versus where you wish you could be, and then backtrace the roadmap from your future perfect self to where we are now. And we just start building it.
Yeah.
And we don't eat the whole cake at once. We've got the recipe. Mm-hmm. We bake the cake, but then we eat it a bite at a time, right? Yeah. And maybe to get to that, it is going to be a year out. Maybe it's going to be 3 years out. Maybe it's going to be 6 months out, because that we can do with what we have to work with. But let's not worry about all the stuff we wish we could do. Let's say, well, what must we do?
Right.
And then once we've reached that, we're not done. Just like the C versus K. Once you reach your goals, you're not done.
Right.
You have a new benchmark, and then you reach that, and you have a new benchmark. And I try to encourage people to think that way, because we're limited so much by our own false beliefs. Mm-hmm. Because we just, for some reason, we feel like, well, we can't do that. But who says? Edison probably had a lot of people tell him to quit, and he said, I'm not going to listen to them. I'm going to listen to this, because my heart's telling me I know I can do this.
Right.
So I think a lot of people need to just realize, if you know you're made for this thing, God will bless it, and you'll be living just life like, pinch me every day to make sure I'm not living a dream, because like my life is so amazing. Yeah. I love what I do, and I can't wait to get to work to get started. So I don't know. I just find it really rewarding to know that I'm helping make a difference in people's lives, because I don't want people to be on that hamster wheel grind, like they're one more stressful week away from a heart attack and their business still isn't doing what they want.
Yeah.
I didn't start running my own business to just trade one job for another. I started the business so that I could be a world changer. Mm-hmm. And I see myself that way, not because I think I'm all that in a bag of chips. I know that each one of us is.
Right.
God created man in his own image, not because he was lonely, because he wanted to have his glory made manifest through us.
Yeah.
And he partners with us to make this world a better place. And we all have our light that needs to shine. And there's such freedom and joy and fulfillment when you step into that place of passion and you go, I know this is what I'm supposed to do. The how and the what and all the rest, we'll figure it all in the way. But it's just rewarding as a man to know I'm in my lane. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. I may be frustrated that I'm not at the revenue price point I want yet, or the revenue point I want yet, or the number of customers yet. Don't worry about that. Just keep doing this, and the rest will take care of itself. So having a healthy destination-minded perspective makes a lot of difference, so that, when you're driving, we're out in the country. I was driving here. I was like, there's a lot of bumps. I'm still on the road. It's a little bumpy, but you just adapt. And I think pivoting is huge. You mentioned that. So much of what we don't do is we don't realize the need to pivot until it's way too late. And then now we're in the ditch, man. Yeah. And we're calling AAA to haul us out because we're stuck.
What's it going to take? What's it going to take to get out of there? And
you got to be able to pivot and adapt or die.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome conversation. I really think that a lot of people need to see what you're all about. And I think that's a great way to see that. And, Where can they find you if they want your services? What's the best place to get a hold of you?
Thank you. I'm glad you asked. Best way is to go to getreviewsandleads.com. I am working on building out. This is a relatively new, again, I've been, before I was self-employed, 30 years now doing this sort of work, but trying to transition away from Oasis Interactive. That's an established brand that's been around since 2007, but I just really kind of want to retire that. So getreviewsandleads.com is the website. But I'm working on building out all the different social media platforms for that. We do have a Google Business Profile page. We have a Facebook page for Get Reviews and Leads. I want to build the rest of them, but I'm trying to work on some other stuff that's not quite as important as that right now. So.
Yeah. Well, getting reviews and getting leads are the most important things that you can do right now. And I don't think people really understand that reviews are something that makes your website, which is kind of like this is where it starts, right?
Oh, yeah.
The reviews is what gets you to get more leads. And
True.
You have to, they all go together. So
it has a kind of a cyclical, there's a mythological thing about a snake eating its tail. I don't remember what that's called, but it's like a flywheel. Yeah. I use a lot of engineering terms sometimes, but a flywheel is this little wheel that a little bit of effort, but has a massive impact on the bigger wheel that moves. And so the reviews, when they're properly coming in, by the way, which is not like a whole bunch of once and then nothing. No, it's better to have 1 or 2 reviews every day forever than 30 at once and then nothing. Yeah. Google will see right through that. So the algorithm has been developed largely through artificial intelligence to be smart enough to recognize when it's being played and gamed. So if you have a good, consistent drip of reviews, which aren't just going to happen because you do a good job, you have to ask for them. Yep. You have to have a system to automate it to do things to incentivize people to do the reviews. And we have software-based solutions that are state-of-the-art that put that thing on autopilot. That's awesome. But the reviews feeds the algorithm. This is a legit company.
Yep.
They're doing a good job. And that directly affects how Google's ranking algorithm for natural search results ranks your website. So the more reviews you have and the better that they are, the more prominent your existing website's going to rank and the more traffic you're going to get from Google. Well, more traffic equals more leads. More leads equals more sales, rinse and repeat. So the more reviews you get, the more leads you get. The more leads you get, the more traffic you get. The more traffic you get, the more reviews you get. And pretty soon you get to a place where it's like, I kind of don't want more business because I can't handle anymore.
Right.
Those are rich, successful people problems. We want to help them get there.
Yep. You got to get there. Yeah. So awesome. Thank you very much for hanging out with us.
Absolutely. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it, Wes. Thank you.
Yeah, very insightful. And, I encourage everyone to, kind of reach out and get to that point where it's going to be helpful and it's a great resource. So we appreciate you being here and sharing your story with us.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Yep. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for hanging out here with us. This is brought to you by my company, Shade Bros. If you need window coverings in the Treasure Valley, please give us a call, 208-99-SHADE. We'll get you covered. And until next time, I challenge you to find the shape of your success.